Labour to diversify the national curriculum. The Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, has begun a review to refresh, in her words, what is taught in schools, pledging to, in their words, breathe new life into our outdated curriculum. Apparently they want to decolonise it and make it less monocultural. Well, I didn't think that our curriculum was particularly outdated. Chris, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
So, we all know what this means, don't we? This will be old, Bridget the Marxist trying to get her mitts on anything to do with British history and trashing it all and saying that we're all horrible, nasty slave owners who shouldn't even have the right to walk the earth with the much nicer people who have come from other countries.
Yeah, and look, Mike, I've been involved under Margaret Thatcher, John Major, and more recently with Michael Gove in writing the national curriculum, in particular history, and I've been quite critical actually of what's been produced. So it's not perfect even now, but the problem with the national curriculum, Mike, is that it can be captured, and it's now been captured by the Labour Party, and they're going to use it as a vehicle for promoting woke ideology. It's quite simple, it's quite straightforward, and, you know, a lot of people are concerned about education at the moment, about standards. Well, things are going to get considerably worse because in the last, 10 years, they have improved slightly, partly because government have adopted our policy, what we said they should be doing. It's improved slightly, but not as much as they say. We're now going to probably go backwards, and I think you'll find when the next international test results come out, we'll see us going backwards again. So very regrettable. It's ideological, and it's in many ways, you know, it's the opposite of what we should be doing.
Right. I mean, I've got two kids who went in the last 10 years, I suppose, through the state school secondary system and the back end of the primary system. And, you know, I don't think at any point when I was looking at what they were studying did I think, my goodness me, this has been written by a load of right-wingers. Absolutely crazy, isn't it? How biased it is against, minorities and the rest of the world, and how it's all about how great Britain is. It's not about that at all. It's never been like that.
No, I mean, that is the opposite of the truth.
Yeah.
The national curriculum for history, and I wrote a minority report on this as well, doesn't require the teaching of any specific event or personality from British history. Yes, you've got to teach British history, but you can do what you like with it. However, you do have to teach, for example, West African history and Islamic history. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but you have to. They're compulsory.
Right.
But as far as British history go, you don't have to teach World War II, don't have to teach Churchill, don't have to teach Henry VIII or the Reformation. Right. So it's already a free-for-all. We call it Sex Pistols history now. It's going back to get worse.
One of my kids was learning about the Vietnam War, which, you know, is all very well. It's kind of interesting period of history, but, you know, I can show the Deer Hunter and, you know, Full Metal Jacket for that, and it's fine. But, you know, I don't see why they have to do it in secondary school.
Look, I mean, what children need is a map of the past. They need to know the landmarks, like driving up a motorway almost, from the past to the present. You need to know where you're going. You need to know where you've come from. And the landmarks are pretty well recognised. You know, the Roman invasion, the Norman conquest, the Reformation, and so forth and so on. These are the landmarks. They should be taught. Churchill, World War I, World War II. These shouldn't be up for negotiation. And we should teach it in a way which I would say is traditional. But where it has a multiracial, multicultural element, by all means teach it. But what was the multiracial element at the Battle of Hastings, for example?
Right. But were they teaching as well that Churchill was a racist?
They're teaching that because it suits their narrative. I mean, to some extent, he reflected the views of his time. If you want a real racist, more racist than Churchill, look at the #1 Black Britain, voted #1 Black Britain. That's Mary Seacole. Mary Seacole is a heroic figure, in my opinion, but she was a great supporter of the British Empire. She put her life on the line to support the British Empire. She went to the Crimea, to the front line. She put her life on the line to support the British Empire. And she had very strong racist views. She used in her autobiography, she uses the N-word quite a lot. You know, she's one of these people who is put on a pedestal. Her statue's outside near Parliament. But she was a racist, and certainly more so than Churchill. But we don't talk about her because in those days, the world was different. Look, Churchill had racist views. Of course, everybody had racist views in those days. He was also probably the greatest Englishman who ever lived.
Yeah, but also he gets blamed for, you know, the Bengali famine, which is a myth. You know, he didn't play any part in that. And that's the bit that I get, you know, it's one thing for you to say he was a racist, he had racist views. You know, you can argue that that was something of his time, but you certainly can't invent facts that then turn out to be untrue facts.
No, that myth has been exploded by a number of historians. There's a group at Cambridge called History Reclaimed, eminent professor. They've shown the whole thing is a myth. Churchill did what he could, actually, with regard to Bengal. It wasn't very much, but it was as much as he could. The climate change then, or the drought caused the famine. So, yeah, all the world's ills are loaded onto the shoulders of British people and now onto the shoulders of children in schools. They've got to learn to feel guilty. That's terrible.
Yeah, I know. And, of course, schools are going to get a lot worse, aren't they, before they get any better, because we already know, as a result of this VAT rise that's going on in the private sector, an awful lot of people are going to lose their ability to pay. So there's going to be 3,500 to 4,000 kids, maybe more than that, per sort of region of the country who are going to come out of private schools. We've already seen in Surrey, they can't accommodate them in the state system. They haven't got the space, so they're having to bust them out of Surrey to put them into state schools in neighbouring counties, which is going to create all sorts of mayhem. So it basically means if you're a parent who took your kids out of private school because you thought you couldn't afford it anymore, you're going to have to reacclimatise them. They're probably going to have to travel a long way to go where they want to go, and it's going to be ridiculous.
And they're doing this, Mike, in the middle of the school year.
Yeah.
It's spiteful, and it's class warfare.
It is,
and,
totally.
You know, we go on and on about we need more money for education. The fact is we spend more on education than most countries around the world.
Yeah.
There are many countries that spend considerably less but can do considerably better in terms of their standards. We need to improve the way we teach, and we need to improve the quality of the teaching. Not many people realise that the majority of staff in schools are not teachers. They're support staff,
right.
Just as in hospitals. We should be supporting the doctors and the nurses, not the bean counters, not the administrators.
Yeah, I mean, my son, when he was in primary school, this was a few years ago, had a teacher who was off sick for the entire year, but who actually was running a YouTube channel while off sick, right? And eventually, it took about another year and a half, I think, after that first year of absence, for him to be taken off the payroll. So they had a teacher that they were paying who wasn't working, and they had to hire teachers in to do his work for him, thereby doubling the cost of the actual school.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of this going on, Mike. But look, there's some fantastic, dedicated teachers out there who I admire and I think are brilliant. But there are also, as in all walks of life, mediocre people doing teaching, and also people who can't do the job. And they need to be weeded out. The only thing that really matters for children is the quality of the teachers.
Yeah.
No other country in the world goes around taxing education. We're doing that now to make it even more difficult for poorer kids to get into the best schools, because richer parents will now use the state sector. And we need to simply focus on raising the standards, but it's a heck of a job. We can look at countries in the Asia Pacific who are already 3 or 4 years ahead of us by the age of 15. Yeah. It's quite frightening.
Absolutely right. Finally, Of Mice and Men apparently has been taken off the curriculum in Wales for GCSE study students because of concerns about racism. Are we going to see, do you think, under Phillipson, a kind of a book banning list that gets produced so you can't teach books that they don't like the look of?
That's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to filter the curriculum so that only woke literature is promoted in school. There'll be some gestures towards Shakespeare, I guess. But look, it's already been watered down. I don't think the Tories have done such a great job. They haven't. They've presided over a slight improvement in reading. But look, when we hear the Tories talk about education, they say, oh, since 2010, we're doing so much better. I say to them, hang on a minute, go back to 2003 and then look at the results and then compare it with now. We actually went backwards from about 2003, improved slightly in the last few years. So, yeah, well, there's going to be a filtering. It's 1984. Come a bit late.
Yeah, shocking, absolutely shocking. Chris, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed